Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I see the herd is thinning. What's that?
Evening is approaching.
Evening is approaching. I understand the pressures of Las Vegas too, right? So, look, this session is, and we'll wait for a few stragglers to come in, but this session is more around the evolving CIO mandate, right? We talked about it briefly in the morning keynotes of how, if you talk to CIOs, kind of the earlier mandate was manage IT resources, cut costs. Those things are changing over from managing IT resources to leadership through transformation, right? From cutting cost to, business outcomes, right? From process control to probably agility and nimbleness and how can I drive growth, right? So we wanted to kind of have an open discussion, right? Obviously, we enable a few of those things as a platform, but I'd like to kind of open it up. Maybe we can start. It's a small group, so we can keep it cozy and interactive. Maybe we can just go around and do a quick round. If your name, title, role, and if you have some opening comments on that, we can go from there.
Let's start with you.
My name's
Frank Donaldson.
There's a microphone coming, so people at the end can hear you too.
We are physically not that cozy yet.
Yeah.
Frank Donaldson.
Social distancing
Hello.
still.
Yeah,
That's good.
Frank Donaldson, and I manage both network and security divisions.
Okay. And the company, Frank?
Eastern Computers.
Okay.
Hello, John Ashley. I'm the CIO of Paramount Residential Mortgage, and also serve as the CISO.
Krishna, CEO of Vidyatech. We work with providing incident remediation around Zscaler DLP.
Rajshri, I also work at Vidyatech. I am VP for Customer Engagement.
David Cadrigo, CXO advisor with Zscaler, former state CIO for Wisconsin and former CIO for an energy company, Alliant Energy in Wisconsin.
That's good.
Rajiv Mehta, CIO, CISO, CTO, and all of the above outside of the CEO role at the Nani Group. And we, like I said earlier, are just starting our journey with Zscaler in the next few weeks.
That's good.
Hi, my name is Jorge Hernandez. I'm CTO from Fibratel, which is a partner distributor of Zscaler in Mexico.
Hello, I'm Richard Thorpe. I'm CTO of First Student. We're a yellow school bus operator in North America.
Wow.
And
All
the
right.
gentleman who just joined us, you're in the hot seat here to introduce yourself.
I'm Ryan with American State Mortgage.
Hey, Brian. Yeah. Yeah, that was loud and clear. So look, I think maybe we start off with, we have our views on what progressive CIOs are doing these days, right? We've seen wonderful transformation stories when security, networking, digital transformation, all of these things come together and they are driven. But we also understand that there are big, complex organizations where some of these functions can get siloed and things get harder to execute on, right? So perhaps one of you can start with maybe if you have to advise a future emerging CIO on how are those roles and responsibilities emerging, what would be your initial thoughts? Yeah, go ahead.
I think for me, you mentioned about cost cutting and that side of things, and I think there's still a role for that. I think the first thing we need to do is look at the ownership and leadership of the business and where they go. For example, we've just been bought by private equity. So we've gone from being a FTSE PLC in the UK where you're driven by shareholder value, which is often tied to a fiscal, to probably a slightly longer term horizon and looking at exit strategy for the equity company. So then you're looking at how do we drive a multiple rather than how do we drive a P&L in the current fiscal. But that's over and above looking at making sure you've got the basics correct as well. And sometimes you've got to start that journey by looking at your cost base and then starting there. So I think there's probably a combination role. That's just my commentary.
Now, we agree. And I look at what you just mentioned as not, don't care about cost, but driving an outcome. In this case, the business outcome is your PE investor is looking at MOIC, multiple on invested capital, right? And that means you got to think strategically about what are the levers I can turn, right, to achieve that outcome. If you just look at it from a cost perspective, right, it might not be an optimum decision. But if you look at it holistically and say, if I did A, B, and C, I am managing cost, but I'm also, improving outcomes, whatever that they may be. It may be more efficient bus routes or more secure, operations, and you can start quantifying that. But we do see that, earlier versions of IT leaders were more about resource and cost, and now, CXOs are change agents, and they're more tied to strategic business outcomes. In your case, it's return on capital for the core investors there. Other thoughts?
I think taking off on what Rich said, maybe it ought to begin with there being an agreement between the security team or the CTO or the CIO with the business that for us SLA, which is a security level agreement, what are they willing to pay? In the sense that each level of investment correlates with a certain level of security. And it is how secure they want it to be that might end up determining how much investment needs to be made in security. But I see that even though cybersecurity is becoming a board member issue, the involvement of business seems to be relatively lower compared to the securities team. It's as if the data belongs to the security team. It's not as if the data actually belongs to everyone in the organization except the security team. Security team has no real data to protect. I think that's important.
I think one thing we are seeing more and more, and maybe this is an initiative we see a lot of our customers doing these days, is they are focusing a lot on end user cybersecurity training as well. They are like tools and technologies like KnowBe4 that just do this work only, right? Or specialize in this only. So is that something you do in order to make your users, and because once users are aware, what we have seen in a lot of organizations that work with, one thing which we see, again, kind of a CIO mandate driving is making users aware. Secondly, making sure that security is not seen as a deterrent in the business objectives of the company, and enabling users, making them more productive, right? So is that an initiative that you're driving in your organization today? So are you rolling out programs for end users as well?
Yes, absolutely. We market it as it's helping you in your personal life as well as just obviously our corporate life. But things like we've leveraged KnowBe4 in the past, we've moved to Mimecast for their awareness training. For us, it was a little bit more sophisticated, but it's right at the cornerstone of our security strategy. Actually, is the awareness piece.
Yeah, piggybacking on some of the comments, I've always strongly believed that IT security should not be the department of no, right? They should be the department of yes, and we will do it securely, and we'll do it frictionlessly, and your life is going to be good, because at the end of the day, we are enhancing collaboration and we're driving business outcomes, right? I think when security becomes very hard and user experience suffers, that's when you start getting into some of the silos and the discussions that you're talking about, right? So very few security companies really push for user experience. We always try to balance You won't get many users who will come and tell you, hey, thanks, that was awesome security that you put on my laptop. Or right? Nobody, because it's always viewed as something that's, in the way. So I do think that tying great security to great user experience outcomes is a win-win for businesses, and kind of CIOs who are responsible for not only protecting data and protecting assets, but also delivering good user experience can drive that kind of systematically. And that often means, lots of mindset change, network transformation, security transformation, and a lot of the things that we talk about. Maybe let me turn the question around. I mean, all of you have your complex organizations, right? One of the jokes we made earlier was, from an engineer mindset, you think of the OSI 7-layer network stack, right? And then there's layers 8, 9, and 10, right? There's budget, politics, and religion on top of that, right? So I'm very curious, right? Like in your roles, what's been the hardest thing for you? And maybe we can get a couple of inputs from the team, and we'll see if we can reconcile that.
Not going back too far in history, I was a CIO at an energy company, 2008, 2009.
Yep.
We
Bad
see this
time there.
repeating.
Yeah.
We see it repeating again. The market has lost more than 6,000 points. Is that the bottom, or is it going to get deeper?
Yeah.
So the organizations are going to be looking at cybersecurity as discretionary or non-discretionary spend, above and below this line. And hopefully it's a non-discretionary spend.
Yeah.
As a CIO for utility, I was asked to stop paying my software maintenance. They thought that was discretionary spend. And I had to cut that. And I found out the companies I wanted to do business with in the future and those that I did not, because if you didn't pay your maintenance, don't call us. So as we look at the future, and I'm hoping that we are at the bottom and we start going back up and all will be good, but I'm worried about where cybersecurity is viewed in that culture of the organization. As an insurance policy, and nothing's happened, so therefore we don't need to spend. Or are they somewhat visionary and they're looking at the future and they know it's going to get worse and they could suffer great losses if they were breached, and they must continue with their investment. Secondly, set that aside, we're at a pivot point where many companies are going through their digital transformations and cloud-first strategies, modernization, and they're moving with excitement and euphoria, not giving cybersecurity a second thought. And that's dangerous as well. Any comments on that? Either one.
So one thing which we are seeing now, especially with a lot of our customers, some of our customers have very, I would say, aggressive M&A strategy. We have customers who acquire once a quarter, once a month. And what we see is like a few years ago, the IT teams used to get engaged in these M&As much later. When the M&A is about to close, then they used to get engaged. Now we are working with a lot of customers, and Jay talked about we have a M&A like consulting team, and we have customers who are proactively reaching out and saying, we are looking at this acquisition to close in 3 months. We have already started an IT consolidation project, and we want you to get engaged now, right? So that mindset shift we are already seeing. But to your point, like I think in today's world, any initiative, especially in the last 2 years in pandemic, what we have seen is, and this is again what trends broadly we are seeing is the IT teams are getting engaged in these projects much sooner. A lot of these things are driven by IT now. So that's usually what we see from our perspective, but do you agree, disagree? You think this is something you are seeing as well?
Yeah, I think maybe piggybacking on your question a bit, your question, if I got it correctly, was, is cybersecurity required or is it discretionary, number one?
Yeah.
In a recessionary environment, will CIOs be under pressure to cut costs and reduce the insurance premium, so to speak, right? And what are we seeing? So look, in any inflationary or any recession environment, the kind of market that we are in, cost is always an important consideration for the business, right? And it manifests itself in several ways, right? One of the things that we do extremely well is If you look at cybersecurity, and we'll come to the notion of whether this is required or nice to have, assuming it's required for business today, the next thing you want to do is, look at your holistic business risk and what you're paying for it, and see if there's a way to consolidate and reduce overall cost, right? And we've done multiple what we call business value analysis, where we will look at your business, the different types of security products and solutions you have deployed. What's the CapEx? What's the OpEx, right? And we have publicly available case studies. In the case of Siemens, as I mentioned earlier, 400,000 employees, the overall IT's infrastructure cost reduction after they moved to Zscaler was 70%, right? So you're eliminating a lot of networks, a lot of appliances, and it was a kind of a big driver. Another driver these days I hear about is ESG, right? So what ends up happening is this pressure to be environmentally conscious, and a lot of the appliances and security stacks that you have within your data centers are power hungry, and they have a huge carbon footprint. We have several case studies where, because 100% of Zscaler infrastructure runs on renewable energy, right, and is very efficient, you basically just eliminated the carbon footprint of your security program in one shot, right? So that's another kind of, different things appeal to different businesses. But if cost is a big driver, and as it will be for many businesses today, consolidation gives you huge ROI, right? And we do that. Now, your other question is a very interesting one. I'd love to get feedback from others, which is cybersecurity a nice to have, right? Should we just say we'll deal with a breach, right? What's the worst that can happen? Is it going to be, if Colonial Pipeline was fine, so will we, right? If SolarWinds recovered from it, I'm curious. You guys are all business leaders. I have distinct views. It may be biased, but I'm very curious to see what views others might have on, I'll just take the risk and cut my cybersecurity spend.
We were minorly impacted with a cyber event last year, probably June or July timeframe. And prior to that, the organization really didn't know what to do with IT. They really didn't have an IT department and whatnot. And, Gartner, Forrester, they all say that the majority of these bad actors that are out there are really hitting mid-sized organizations across the globe. And since we're a mid-sized organization, we were collateral damage on a particular event that happened. And that really opened their eyes, right? It's a privately held company, really opened the eyes of the ownership to say, hey, we better do something. And again, Gartner comes back and says that if you were impacted, regardless of how severe it was, there's a 60% chance that you will get impacted again within a certain time frame, right? And so in that sense, from my viewpoint, cybersecurity is top of mind for everybody. And everything that I've done so far to put in the tools and the processes to enhance our security posture, including Zscaler. Zscaler, I think, is the last component of the things that we've put in place, and looking forward to getting it. But definitely, cybersecurity is out there. I mean, we've heard from mid-sized to large-sized organizations that it's going to be a pretty impactful event.
Yeah, we agree, and we're a public company, and kind of our guidance to the street was, yes, there is pressure, but we don't see that translating to significant impact on demand yet. And part of that is pretty much any CIO study that I've seen puts digital transformation and cybersecurity right kind of up there in terms of core priorities now. But thinking about how can I be more cost effective but get better value from my overall program, and that comes with consolidation. If you have 10 individual point products that you're managing, maybe your risk has not gone down, but you're still spending so much, right? If you look at the thing that we're driving very hard is this whole security and network transforming together, right? It's not just replace this security appliance with a virtual service in the cloud. It's a re-architecture of your environment, which in many cases we have seen when properly implemented yields substantial ROI, right? Which appeals even more in an environment that we live in today. Yep.
It all goes back to, it depends on your business really, as to where the value prop is. Our example, we run 45,000 school buses. You know, we move 5 million kids a day. An accident on a vehicle, just one vehicle crash full of school kids for our business is probably worse than the most catastrophic data breach we could have in terms of what it would cost our company. So you've got to make your business case through that lens.
Yep.
For me, the biggest one I'm just interested in the wider group's opinion as well is another driver for it is cyber insurance, and the way cyber insurance premiums are just skyrocketing. It's getting to a point where actually it's almost worth not having it because the deductible goes so high, the amount we'll pay is so relatively low. If my deductible is $5 or $10 million, then I'll just take the hit. Thank you very much, and it'll only cover up to $5 billion of payouts. So it's costing a ridiculous amount of money. So what I'm interested in is how tools like Zscaler and security tools, if they will help me drive my cyber insurance premium down, I can make a business case on that aspect.
Yeah.
So I just don't know what the group's experience is in that area.
Yeah, curious to get some inputs on cyber insurance and leveraging Zscaler or other solutions to bring down those premiums. So 2 points. A, is cyber insurance worth it? And B, if you're doing that, it's like, when you bought a vehicle, you got low jack, auto insurance went down. I'm curious what the group thinks about that.
Yeah, so we actually do have a cyber insurance in the financial services industry. We almost have to. But with that said, it's, the brokers are actually coming back and saying, no longer we'll give you a discount if you have these capabilities. It's you have these capabilities or we will not give you a policy.
Yep.
So it's kind of flipping a little bit. So yeah, the more security you have, great, less we're likely to pay out, but you're not getting a discount for that. So thank you very much. But to your point earlier, the team of yes. So I'm actually a CISO. So our pitch is we're the team of yes, but. So, and we throw the but in there, and it's
I like it
because the business understands that.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute, what is the but? What do I have to do before I can get what I want? I think that's the big approach for us is really looking from a financial perspective. So we're in the process right now of going to service catalog because I don't think the business understands what they're paying for.
Right.
And because they're not paying, where IT's just consuming that cost. Right. And so by actually putting a price tag on it, it's helping them to better understand, well, wait a minute, those nice to haves, those must haves, well, do we really need them or don't we need them if it's going to cost this much?
Yeah.
So that's the approach we've taken to actually mitigate that question, is make them decide, is it worth it or not?
Yeah. Those are excellent points. And, to the comment on, we have buses and students, and clearly the biggest business risk is accidents, right? Agreed, right? I think you got to look at overall risk. When the board talks about what's the risk to the company, cyber is one piece of it, but there might be other existential things, right? Bigger problems. Some of the things to think about, not just from a traditional ransomware or some, student information got leaked out, is the risk in environments like that are, if my systems are taken over, are my bus schedules, offline for a week, right? What kind of PR event does that create, right? A yellow bus offline, 500,000 parents yelling, right? Things like that. And a lot of the disruptive attacks, right? There is the data exfiltration component, but a lot of the disruptive attacks are around businesses, the core operations being down for many, many days, right? Because just the recovery takes so long. And the cyber insurance comment, look, I mean, it's a bit like, getting earthquake insurance in California, right? You got to have certain things, and it is a little expensive. But I always look at have good security practices, to protect your business. If that's a mandatory requirement of cyber insurance, and if you're a regulated entity like financial, you have to have it. But at least, you can sleep peacefully knowing that, my brand, my core stuff is not as risky as it could be if I did not do the basics. Right? That's how I would look at it. We have cyber insurance, and we laugh at it because we're a security company, but our directors, have to have insurance, and the premiums are very high. And we're like, hey man, we are the zero trust framework. We're like, oh, here's the cost, right, of insurance. Other thoughts on the discussion we've had so far? Frank, you've been quiet. I'll put you on the spot.
Actually, I don't have anything to add.
So let me ask one question, and I want to understand. We talked a bit about security, right? One thing we have seen quite a bit in last 2 years. I'll give you an example of one of our customer, 25,000 users, like distributed workforce. As pandemic started, they came up with a strategy. We will always be hybrid going forward. We are not bringing people back full time. So CEO's mandate to the new CIO and SVP of infrastructure who joined was make employees more productive. So how do you do that? So come up with a quantitative framework. Jay talked about NPS, right? So we measure our customer sentiment with NPS. So this CIO specifically said, I'm going to roll out an NPS framework for my employee satisfaction. So their score was negative initially. Like user experience tickets are open, they stay open for days, right? So they use some of our technologies, they use some other technologies. At the end of the day, the CIO was able to show a quantitative study that after 3 months after him coming in, all the technologies he deployed, the NPS score for the users went up by 18 points. And then the CEO went and asked him to present this to the board. So he actually came and did it as a public talk with a company called Syneos Health. So I'm very curious to understand, are you seeing more mandates coming in, or you are driving a mandate where you're saying, let's make employee more productive, let's make sure their employee experience becomes important, especially for us in tech industry. The talent wants to come and work where they have a lot of autonomy to work, and they have certain entitlements. So
$4,000 MacBooks included in that.
So is that something that you're seeing a shift, and you really want to are driving certain objectives around that too, Frank? Yeah. Okay. Is that a funded project? Or is it something you're incrementally doing? What are things you are?
Is IT being measured on NPS for your internal employees?
I'd say it's a way it's in the distance, and there's a lot of chatter around it. I think it's real. Just realize that so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'll share a simple example of an end user IT consumer, right? It was just when the pandemic had started. My wife works in used to in a big financial company. I won't name the company. I work at Zscaler. So she was a remote employee even before the pandemic. And one of the things that they had done was dropped in a small networking device into the house, and that would set up a point-to-point VPN to their corporate environment, the data center. And so she would connect to the home Wi-Fi, and she would always be on the extended corporate network, right? And everything would work. I was Zscaler, and we never had that, so just client connector, life was good. So when the pandemic happened, we rented an Airbnb a couple of months into the pandemic to go somewhere to work. And she'd been working so long that she'd forgotten that there is this magic VPN branch of one happening in the house. So she moved. We had 2 weeks in that Airbnb, and basically she just couldn't work because there was no way, right? And they couldn't even turn around a ticket to get a VPN, and they were overloaded at that time. So I do feel those are examples of, that's a simple example of an end user experience. And if that was measured through NPS, I mean, my wife had choice words for IT, right? So, cost and how do I simplify user experience and, make things a little more frictionless in the hybrid world that we live in. These are all very important drivers, and we see that in a theme show up over and over again. One of the examples that Dhaval had mentioned, which also kind of is important in the PE environment and the cost savings environment that a few folks have mentioned, is definitely the whole M&A angle. In today's market, you will see more mergers, acquisition, consolidation. And one of the biggest friction points we've seen in M&A is, again, the IT integration, right? Typically, it might be an 18-month project just to get networks aligned and non-overlapping IP addresses sorted out. And, when you do M&A due diligence and the plan is put together, you see like this long pole, which is integration is going to take so long. And that is going to erode kind of time to value from that M&A. So we believe, again, good security, again, we have an M&A practice, and all we do is organization A needs to access organization B's applications and vice versa through the M&A. And if you can keep it decoupled, it's like you and your neighbor need to access applications. We don't need to, flatten our network and connect both houses onto the same network before that happens. That's been a huge cost driver, time to value driver. And I suspect you're going to see a lot more of those types of ROI benefits, from a zero trust architected security and network, because it just makes things a lot easier to, like when you change your house today, everything just works in the house. What do you have to change? Just your ISP, right? Imagine if it was you change your house and then you need to redo the whole network and, re-educate all your employees on how to use it, or your kids in this case. It's not going to work, right? So we try to keep those things simple.
And also we are seeing a lot of customers that, again, the new generation of workers who are coming, they want everything to be consumer-like experience. We have a lot of customers who are not even shipping laptops to the users anymore. They're saying, you just get this golden image from the company, you connect to us, you get the client connector from us, or you get the EDR running, and then you are on your own. You just don't need to get a company-managed laptop anymore, and you can go to these applications like you go to any consumer app. So the user experience from that perspective is also becoming very, very important today.
Good. Excellent. I think that's the time we have. Thank you for your participation. I know the herd has thinned out, but we had a good, cozy discussion. We appreciate that. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you.